and welcome back to another chapter of Heroes and Hermits by Algonaver on AO3. Chapter 7. When False was asked to break into a pet shop, she thought it was a joke. A light-hearted joke from Cub, who suddenly decided to adopt a bunch of spiders. She had to admit, spiders in Japan were very cute and small. The biggest one could easily fit on her palm. But for what reason Cub felt the need to stack a bunch of containers with them along the darkest wall of their base, that was something she definitely had to be more concerned about. And he seemed weirdly manic about them, constantly hovering over them, feeding them, and doing some kind of spell casting on them. As it turned out, Cub was absolutely serious. These ones I've collected from the streets and buildings, but it's not nearly enough. There are bigger variants that I want to get my hands on, and there are conveniently sold in special shops around the city. He added to explain his request. I could just go and buy them, but where's the fun in that? Not my style, really. So you want me to do crimes for your new hobby, or what? Is this relevant to our primary goal, Cub? Because I'm not breaking the law without a reason, said False in a stern tone. She was sitting in the only chair available for sitting in the room, sleepily sipping her tea. The rest of the furniture in the office Cub had rented was repurposed as lab equipment. False was not surprised, not even a little, that Cub was lying earlier when he said it wasn't a lab. Maybe at first it wasn't, but in a short few hours she spent napping on the couch, the rest of the office was filled up with spiders, glass bottles, weird tubes, and papers. To say it was a mess was like not saying anything at all. And Voss always has been a light sleeper, so how in the world did Cub manage to bring it all of it silently? I have a reason, countered Cub. Right here. He picked up one of the spiders and came closer to where False was sitting. These little critters have something of value. Take a guess. Spiders were mostly an annoyance, like any other hostile mobs, but not without their uses, and so False said, What? The eyes or something? Yes, that's right, the spider eyes. Cub turned around and brought the spider back into its closure. Then he performed a dance spin to face the table nearest to him, on which the tubes with bottles stood. False realized what Cub was now looking at her expectantly, waiting for something. She sighed and stood up. Finishing her tea, she walked up to him with a tired expression. He currently was in some kind of science nerd mode, and False's current mood did not align with it very well. Not at all. Spill the beans already, she murmured, while trying to suppress the sleepiness. Cub, thankfully, listened and reached to close the blinds on the windows behind the table. Then he lifted a cloth that lay on the table. He took out a bottle from under there and shook it in his hand, a purple liquid inside, sparkling despite the lack of light. Potions. Invisibility mainly is what I'm after. I found some redstone in my coat's pockets, and then I found a piece of nether wart when I changed my clothes. He placed the bottle back. Redstone would be easy to replicate with local resources. The nether wart would be a challenge, though, as there is no magic in this world to activate the portal to the nether. Without the soul sand, we can't grow more of it. Hold on there. Why do we need potions in the first place? False knew how useful they were, even with how so bothersome it was to brew them. She just did not expect Cub to rush so suddenly after them. Don't you have magic that can do much cooler things? Cub shifted where he stood, his face frowning for a second. It was brief, and before False knew it, his body swiftly went back to being relaxed. Huh. That was one more point of concern. I do. Unfortunately, it's too risky to use on you or any other allies. I'm trying to rely less and less on it. Without Exuma here, things can get very nasty very quickly. Don't want to risk it. Got it, said False in response. She understood, and she was proud of him for doing so. Many hermits came from a bad place in life. Cub, no exception. They went through a lot together, and False saw with her own eyes. Personally saw how different he was from the man who first stepped on Hermitcraft all those years ago. She had her own past to hide from, her own demons to overcome. It wasn't a smooth path, but she wasn't walking alone. If Cub was prepared to take the long way home, she will go with him. False thought that he had already used some magic to get where he was in this world, because in just one day he had found himself a base, a source of information. Impressive and worrying at the same time, False remembered the warnings of power corruption. There was no way she would allow him to slip this far. That was why she was currently crawling through the open window inside of some specific pet shop Cub had pointed out for her. And he was weirdly detailed in his explanations for her, when False was to sneak inside, where to find the spiders, and when to leave the room. It might have been related to the duration of the potion, but False was given 5 bottles, which lasted for about 6 minutes. By the time she was supposed to spend inside was only 15 minutes. And Cub would be waiting outside, disguised through different means. False felt as if she was in a goofy spy movie, except there were no lasers or enemy guards, just a quiet room filled with all kinds of glass and plastic containers. Fish tanks were glowing, filters humming in the night. Some sawdust was shuffled inside one of the containers, a hamster perhaps, or a snake. Finding what she was after was easy. Spiders were kept inside small plastic enclosures that were handy to carry out. So, not wasting any time, False stuffed practically all of them inside of a backpack and checked the time. She still had a couple of minutes to spare. She took her 3rd potion as sneakily as she could and went to stand outside the window. Unlike items and armor, her backpack was unaffected by invisibility, so she didn't have to worry about it being seen. From there, False could see Cub standing outside in business suit, pretending to be talking on the phone. Or he could be talking for real, maybe doing 2 tasks at once. It was in his style, thought False and smiled. This adventure was kind of fun, despite having to be awake at night. But no monsters ever spawned anyways. She had nothing to complain about. Hanging out at night was cool, and with the city outside being brightly lit with colorful lights and advertisements. Her com buzzed and she knew it was time to jump out. Running up to Cub, she expected to run with him as fast as possible, but instead he gestured for her to keep still and turned to look at his own comm. Then he whispered, while still pretending to talk on the phone, "The store is guarded by a nearby hero agency. One of them just entered through the front door to try and catch you." "Why are we still here?" she whispered back. "Let's get out of here." Cub's face was suddenly smirking, the mischievous vibe literally radiating from his new demeanor. His hand lowered into one of his pockets to take out a spider, a shiny spider who was glowing like an enchanted book. Although a second later, False noticed how transparent it actually was. Being drenched in the invisibility potion too, she could only see it because Cub's own hand was emanating some magical aura to let it show. "Walk back up to the window and throw this little one inside." Cub extended his hand and False had to reach hers to take the spider. It was warm to the touch, very warm, and it was fully transparent now. Even she could not see it. Cheeky bastard. False went back to the window. As and did as Cub asked, even if it wasn't previously agreed upon. She did not like him planning things behind her back. They were partners, after all. But what else was she supposed to do? Maybe a minute passed before the hero came tumbling out the window, smashing the glass with her body and falling on the ground. While False was stunned and confused, Cub went closer to the hero, letting his phone fall on the ground and pretending to shake her awake. False saw what he was actually doing. His hands were leaving barely visible blue streaks on her outfit and skin, disappearing a moment later. Whatever kind of magic it was, no way was it anything good. False doubted for a moment whether to let him continue or stop him. This wasn't in the original plan, he told her, but was clearly planned on his part. Secrets again. But that wasn't helping her trust in him in the slightest. While she stood there panicked on the inside, Cub helped the hero stand up and seemed to be talking to her. After a minute, she was already limping away towards the street where the cars were driving. It was time for False to take the next potion, so she did that by pressing close to the wall where Cub previously passed her the spider. As they were walking away, with False still being invisible, she could not hold her rage anymore. "Cub, what kind of stunt was that?" She was whispering angrily at him, barely containing herself from punching him in his smug face. "You better explain yourself right now." "When we get back, I promise." He shot back and sped up his walking. On the way back, they were quiet the rest of the walk. Back in the office, False let her invisibility pass as she took off the backpack. Now she had a new mission, just as important. To get started, she slammed the sneaky man she trusted before into the wall, holding him there in her tight grip, not too hard so he wouldn't suffocate, but enough to force all the air out of his lungs. His face twisted from that nasty grin to a more familiar expression of terror. False knew that look, except usually it was worn by her enemies just seconds before their heads would come off. Cub was her friend. She thought they were friends, but he might have a different opinion on that. Things needed to be cleared out between them before it was too late. "Talk," she ordered stiffly. He wiggled in her grip, but there was no escape for him. Okay, jeez. So much pressure all of a sudden. Can you let me go? I'm kinda dying here." His voice came out ragged and harsh, though False wasn't sure she was pressing on his lungs too hard. She lowered him a little and relaxed her knuckles, so now Cub's feet were on the ground. He was still pressed against the wall, and False wasn't planning on letting him go anymore. Close enough," said Cub, taking a deep breath and continuing. "So, about that little, omission on my part, I knew that you wouldn't approve. The plan was to get a person on the inside to keep track on local law enforcement. Police here is not as prominent as heroes, so I decided to lure one in at the same time getting the materials we needed for the potions." "And what about the potions? I think you never answered why you need them." False kept her voice firm and assertive, not giving Cub any room to wiggle his way out of answering. He was hesitant at first. False could see his doubt in slight shifts of his lips and eyes. "It's to protect us and other hermits when we ultimately reunite them. This place was not meant for us, and I'm afraid the situation might have escalated beyond my control. For that, we needed potions, weapons, armor, and planned escape routes by all means necessary." "Is that why you are ready to endanger innocent people to do things that could be achieved through less invasive means? Like, I don't know, digging for ore, collecting resources instead of forcing people to jump out of windows and putting a target on their backs." "This is an island nation. Unlike back home, distribution of resources is very much uneven here. The world itself was generated naturally, long before we could use magic to create them. Things are different around here. It's easy to take notice if you look. Climate is unstable, weather changes throughout the year, the sun even rises on different times. No one bothers to simulate things like that. Maybe only on purpose. Maybe only on some hardcore survival worlds where you purposefully go for a challenge. Cub gestured at the window and False turned to look. The sky was tinted pink. The sun would be rising soon. Cub continued, think of this place as a hardcore survival challenge. No one is equal. Resources are limited and everyone is fighting for themselves. If we want to win, we have to play by these rules. False huffed and let go of Cub, walking up to the window to look at the unawakening city. The street lights were turned off now. More cars were piling up on the street road. More people. Doesn't mean we have to act like total jerks, said False. And aren't we better than this? Didn't we spend all that time on Hermitcraft grinding resources and learning how to survive? I personally know how to fight and win. I don't know about you, but for me, Hermitcraft is as peaceful as it gets. Despite everything, we still see value in each other and our friendship. Here in Japan, here on Earth, however, it's everyone for themselves. I saw how people in this world are. We are different. Cub started placing spiders in a pile of enclosures, seemingly done with this discussion. False thought otherwise. It's because you only interacted with people who are cut from the same cloth as you. Her words were ignored, but False continued. And if you keep hiding secrets from me, Cub fan, and then we'll have to go separate ways until we go back home. That made him turn around to finally look at her, clearly distraught by this phrase. What? No, Falsey, no. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He quickly came closer, his hands fidgeting with an empty spider container. Cub's gaze trailed off to the ground. There was a moment of silence between the two hermits. Then Cub threw the container on the ground and opened his arms. Can we hug it out? I will never keep things from you, False. But she placed her hand on his and forced it down. Sorry, no hugs for now. Who knows, you might brainwash me too. After that, False pushed him aside, walking away, closing the toilet door behind herself with enough force to make the walls shake. Without her, Cub was alone with his spiders crawling inside their cages and his loathing crawling inside of his mind. Shigaraki Tomura was curious. Here he was, struggling to gain enough power to change the world, to bring utter collapse to the disgusting system ruling the world. His master left his shoes that needed to be filled. With someone grand and loud, he would be noticed by the entire world. And here was the leather in front of him. Unassuming, plain paper. No fancy seals, no ribbons, no handwritten ink words. It was scribbled on the back of a burger wrapper, not even a tasty one in his opinion. Leather that promises him everything. How ridiculous it was, how bizarre. And he believed it. Why though? It was written with a cheap, dry pen on a crumpled piece of leather. There were some sauce stains on it too. The handwriting was good. The lines were even despite the paper, and the wording itself was persuasive. Tomura's inner adventurer was screaming in delight. This thing smelled of journeys and wonders. Of beef and ketchup as well, but he never enjoyed them. Someone knew him well enough to deliver this leather in a manner mysterious and thrilling to Shigaraki. He found it at the end of a trail of breadcrumbs, leading from his bedroom to the bathroom of their current hideout. He thought it was a prank at first. These weren't rare with his teammates. The letter itself was hidden inside a bottle with a torn-off brand. According to the letter, if he wanted his power, he needed obsidian. He would have to bring it to a specific location where he would receive his next goal. Tomura would have laughed at this silly thing, assuming he would serve someone and do some silly fetch quest for a random letter. It reeked of an RPG side quest. So stupid. So stupid, in fact, that he wanted to attempt it. At least pay a visit to that mentioned location to laugh at the person who thought he would serve them. How stupid this was. And yet, it was thrilling. Because it wasn't about the main events, his goal of destruction. It was about collecting rocks. What did they think what did they think he was? Geologist? But no, it was addressed to him, and in a way that spoke to his desires. It was targeted at him for whatever reason, at the leader of a villain group who had absolutely nothing to do with side quests, and stupid rocks. Who was about to do this stupid quest and find out everything about it? As morning sunbeams appeared through the window and fell on Cub's face, his sleep was cut short. Grumbling and huffing, Cub opened his eyes to see how he fell asleep at the table. His back was hurting from the uncomfortable seat. His head was ringing from the abrupt awakening all around terrible. There was a temptation of going back to sleep. It would be so easy to close his eyes and care about the consequences later. But Cub was stubborn, pushing himself up from that horrible cheap office chair to stretch his numb limbs. Yawning, Cub was ready to get back to work. Although there was one aspect of being in a free world he now realized was the worst. Without an admin to take care of everyone, there was no energy that would magically replace a lack of sleep. Muscles were strained, mind clouded, and throat was dry. Every symptom came crashing down on Cub while he was trying to put on his lab coat. Cold water would probably help a bit, he thought. Finding the bathroom and turning the water on, Cub lowered his head into the sink. Water did help a little, focusing his attention on its cooling stream, but now his hair was wet. He looked into a mirror. His dark hair was sticking to his forehead. Drops of water were rolling down his face, drawing Cub's attention to his exhausted appearance. His skin appeared to be sickly greenish in the bathroom lighting, and if he stared at it long enough, he could probably see right through it. Was it a trick of the light, or his magic truly getting weaker? That couldn't be right. He had a business meeting today. No mistakes would be allowed there. Everything had to go perfectly. Staring at his own deep green eyes only made it worse. He could see how fake they looked. No one in their right mind would believe his dumb charade. Like a clown in a circus playing role, everyone knew he was fake all along. What did this poor sink ever do to you, my guy? You're about to break it in half. Suddenly came False's voice from behind him. His attention immediately snapped. She didn't appear in the mirror, so he turned around to see her lying on a bunch of towels. She was using her jacket as a pillow on top of them, and it seemed like she herself just woke up, probably when he stormed inside. Sorry, he said in reply and sat down on the toilet lid. Did you sleep well? Couch was definitely better, not gonna lie. But this reminds me of a base a bit. I like sleeping when it's a bit cool. Easier to get cozy and fall asleep. Her tone was a drastic contrast from yesterday's, even if it was just a few hours ago. It wasn't like Cub knew what time it was now. His calm was right here, but he never bothered to check. If False managed to calm down during her rest, Cub was happy for her. He still felt horrible about himself, and there was still something he needed to tell her about. So it was nice she wasn't as threatening now. Her voice got back to that slightly teasing tone of light-hearted jokes and friendly bickering. Cub much preferred this one over the I will punch you right now tone. God, he never wished to be on the receiving end of that one. It would have never ended good for him. Better let their potential enemies experience this wrath in his stead. Anyways, she continued after his silence got too long for her. Good morning. Good morning, he said back with a smile. All he could do now was hope he wouldn't get his face smashed for sharing his crazy plan with her. By the way, I found a way to get soul sand without the nether. Just don't tell me Don't tell me what we have to rob next. A graveyard? She did a theatrical whine and shook some hairs out of her face. They definitely needed to get brushed, Cub noted. Though a graveyard robbing sounded like fun, they had no time for that. No, no, no. That would be cool, yeah. But I've got an easier method. A morgue. Fall stared at him for a solid minute before replying. Right, a morgue. This is a hardcore world, isn't it? Obviously, they would have a morgue here because people die. Like, for real die. Cap shifted his legs apart to sit more comfortably, lowering a bit towards False. She looked distressed. There was clearly something that bothered her beyond the premise of a morgue. You've been in the hardcore server, right? He asked carefully. It might be a sensitive topic, but it was better to ask now. I'm sorry if it's invasive or rude to ask. Nah, I get it. False rubbed her eyes as she sat up, her tangled hair in slumped pose adding to her tired voice. I was so happy when I escaped from there. I would never wish for anyone to go through that. And being back in the world like that, it gets to me. People here deserve happiness as much as we do. But what can we do to help? We're lost here, and our friends probably lost too. Do you remember something before waking up here? Her eyes turned to him, waiting for an answer. I do. I remember being in Bodum with Scar. He wanted to show me something, and other Bodum folks were there too. Grian and Impulse, for sure. I saw Pearl, but she was like on the roof of her base doing something. He had no clear link between his memories of being on Hermitcraft and being in Japan, only haze in between. Yeah, I don't remember why I came there. I think I was with Cleo. Right, I was with Cleo and my froggy hat. I gave her my froggy hat. False's hand run through her hair. She was remembering something. And then Joe and Exuma, they were there. X went to the Bodum pole, I think, and Joe came to Cleo and me. You think they're here as well? Asked Cub. Her recounting of the story was different from his as expected, obviously, and her story made a lot of sense, surprisingly, if he was to add up both of their stories. Because I woke up in a different city and only came here because it's the capital. If you woke up here, then that would probably mean Cleo and Joe might be here as well. Then Cub abruptly stood up. Realization came to him, a conclusion. And that would mean Scar is back in the city I left. False nodded in reply and stood up after him. She stretched her arms up and took a deep breath. Sounds about right. What are we going to do about it? They stood there, silently pondering the question, until Cub yawned again and offered. How about that? You think of a plan while I get ready for today's meeting with my partners. I'll work on getting us a bigger base, and you work on searching for our friends. You were the one who found me, after all. She nodded and smiled. I'll see what I can do. And that is the end of Chapter 7.